Good morning, everyone. It's Crystal with Catching Up with Crystal. This is story time. We're going to jump right into it. In this video, I'm going to tell you about how I was diagnosed with lung cancer, given the scare of my life, then received a different diagnosis. This is the second life-threatening diagnosis I've had in my lifetime, and let you know now at the end of my videos where you hear me say life is what you make it, so make the most out of life. I mean that from the heart and from experience. I am on my way to the library. Today is my day off. I apologize for the lighting of the video. It's raining outside. I do have a test this Friday for those of you who watch my channel for the adventures of my nurse practitioner, psychiatric nurse practitioner adventures. I have a test on Friday, and I'll make a little quick video about that when I get to the library. But I am going to take you on a drive. It's a short drive as I go to the library and tell you about how I was diagnosed with lung cancer. Shout out to Shalia, who makes my t-shirts, and she played an instrumental role in taking me to one of my doctor's appointments. So I just want to thank you for your friendship, Shalia. You may notice that my face is fat. Now, I am on steroids because of this diagnosis that I received. And so steroids make you gain weight. They increase your blood sugar. They can give you rashes. They can make your bones soft. They can make you anxious. They can make you depressed if you're on them for long periods of time. But I am starting to get that steroid face, and I am putting on weight. I did make a video this morning. I'm going to see what I can do to try to get some of this weight off. It's going to be very difficult. That'll be another video. All right, so let's get this car in reverse and go to the library. Stay tuned, and let's go. All right? Okay. I don't want to hear nothing about my driving either. I drive like a maniac. All right, so today is June the 14th, and my story starts December the 9th. December the 9th of 2021. December the 9th of 2021. So I'm a nurse practitioner, and I was working in a population of people who were heavily affected by COVID. And we had a COVID outbreak at my job. And, wasn't the first time, wasn't the last time. And even during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, I ran a COVID prevention site. So we had people who were in hotels who had COVID or didn't have COVID, and if they did have COVID, I would get them out of there. The purpose of the hotel was to keep people safe. We didn't know what was going on, so it was kind of like to separate people who had COVID from people who didn't have COVID. Sorry about that, guys. Alright guys, my phone fell, so hopefully I'll be able to edit that out and the video won't look too crazy. But anyway, so I never caught COVID during the height of the pandemic. Eventually I did though. But anyway, so December the 9th, we had a pretty bad outbreak. Actually, no, go backwards. December the 3rd, we had a pretty bad outbreak of COVID where I was, and I was vaccinated, but I only had one of the vaccines, and I had Johnson & Johnson. So anyway, I had started to develop this cough, and I kept coughing, and I was sweating, and I was tired, but really the only thing, because I work hard, and I'm of age where I could be sweating from menopause, so I kind of didn't give that any thought. So the cough was bothering me. So when we had a pretty bad outbreak of really bad outbreak. It affected, the patients and staff. Like, we were just dropping like flies. So I had this cough. So I said, let me go. I was so concerned because I was taking care of my mom. At the time, my mom was 88 years old. And basically, I was her caregiver and acting as a home health aide. She was living independently. I would do her grocery shopping for her. She lived in a apartment, high-rise, not a nursing home, high-rise for people 55 and older. But I would, bought her groceries, and she would cook for herself, and she, I would clean her apartment. But anyway, I was worried about exposing my mother to COVID. And so I want y'all to be able to see my eyes, so I'm going to take these glasses off because there's a reflection. So I went to the emergency room that night because the outbreak was so bad, and I live in another state than where I work, and so I said, let me go to the emergency room and see if I have COVID, because I definitely did not want to murder my mother with COVID. I have a call coming in. I'm going to decline this call. I hope you guys aren't hearing it. So go to the emergency room, and they, my heart rate is really high, and I don't have a fever. They swab me for COVID. It comes back negative. They swab me again, coming back negative again, but I have this cough. And there's a lab test called a D-dimer. So what a D-dimer will do is, when you have that test, so they drew a bunch of labs on me. They gave me an EKG, and they sent me for a chest x-ray. The reason they sent me for a chest x-ray is because they drew labs, and my D-dimer came back positive. When a D-dimer comes back positive, one of the things it can be indicative of is that you have a blood clot somewhere in your body. Okay, so they sent me for a chest x-ray to make sure I didn't have a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot in my lungs. So I declined another call. This person keeps calling, and I hate it, and he knows it. One of my pet peeves is, if you call me and I can't pick up, don't immediately call right back, because when you just keep ringing and ringing, if I can't pick up, I can't pick up, and I'll call you when I can. So anyway, back on topic. My D-dimer came back positive. They thought I had a blood clot somewhere in my body. My heart rate was elevated, but I was coming back negative for COVID. They tested me twice. Send me for a chest x-ray to make sure I don't have a blood clot in my lungs. I get the chest x-ray done. I'm waiting in the emergency room still in this wheelchair. One thing I should say is, I went to the emergency room around 6 o'clock at night. They worked me up. It was very crowded. It was ridiculous because it was the height of the pandemic. There weren't beds for people, so people were in the hallways. The upstairs beds from the emergency room, like the actual hospital, were full, so people were sleeping in the ER on stretchers in the hallway. It was pretty bad. So anyway, I'm sitting in the wheelchair, and because there's nowhere else for me to sit, and the doctor, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, come on. Like, I had to be to work the next day, and I just was like, I had a doctor's appointment also at 8 o'clock the next day. So that was already scheduled. So I asked the nurse, what's going on with me, yada, yada, whatever. So she says, has the doctor come and talked to you yet? I said, no. She said, okay, he will. So shortly thereafter, the doctor comes, and nice doctor. And I'm sitting in the wheelchair, and he gets down on one knee, and he's not gonna propose. I'm a cutie, but he ain't proposing. So he gets down on one knee, and he says, sometimes when we are looking for one thing, we find something else. And he said, you have lung cancer. Oh my God. Oh Jesus. Oh my God. I had lung cancer and I started to cry. He said he found, the x-ray found nodules in my lungs. Okay. And he said in some cases, we tell people, oh, they could wait 6 months and follow up. But in your case, it's so severe, you need to have this treated. You need to be seen for this right away. Now, I have had, as I said, a previous diagnosis where I should have been dead already. And maybe I'll make a video about that. I will tell you, I'm a breast cancer survivor, and I really should be dead, but I'm not. So God has a purpose for me. I'm here for a reason. So the doctor, he's apologizing and yada yada, and he's asking me why am I crying, and I explained to him, because I'm not a regular patient. I'm a nurse practitioner. I don't know if he knew it, but I knew what the implication meant that, of these nodules in my lungs. So, as I said, I just happened to have a doctor's appointment already scheduled with my primary care. And so I asked the doctor, not the doctor, but I asked the nurse when she was discharging me, print out all of my labs, all of the reports so I could take them to my primary. I go to my primary. I happen to have an 8 a.m., 8:30 appointment. And remember, keep in mind, I was in the hospital till 4 a.m. I have a very good relationship with my primary care physician, and I tend to always have good relationships with my providers because once they get to know me, number one, there's a mutual respect that we are both in healthcare. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not a bad patient sometimes. I'm absolutely a bad patient sometimes because I don't always do as I'm told. Well, it depends. If I don't agree with something, and here's where it makes me being a bad patient. If I don't agree with something, I have the knowledge to debate it with them and say, but that's not what the literature says, or that's not what the standard of practice is. And so why are we doing this? So that's what I challenge. And I tell you, challenge your doctor. You are not sheep. You do not have to go to the slaughterhouse without asking why am I being slaughtered. Anywho, moving on. Go to my doctor. And this is how I know I have a good relationship with my doctor. My doctor got emotional when she found out that I had lung cancer. And so this is not the same health system. In the end, I went to 3 health systems, and I'm going to tell you the story how I got there. And I'm at the library now, but I'm still going to tell you this story. So my doctor gets on the phone. This is how God is good. And when you have a great relationship with your doctor and when you're in healthcare, because let me tell you something. I know if I wasn't in healthcare, and I know if I didn't have the connections that I had, things would not have moved as fast as they moved for me. Okay? Still finishing the story. So my doctor's emotional, but she gets on that phone. Now, this is healthcare system number 2. The first hospital I went to, the emergency room where I was diagnosed, was in the state that I live in. The next doctor, my doctor I go to, is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and she gets on the phone. I see her. She gets on the phone and she calls a thoracic surgeon. And Dr. Jabbar, I believe his name was Dr. Jabbar. And Dr. Jabbar, she sends an email. She gets on the phone. She sends the message that doctors communicate with each other. And I used to work for this health system, so I know what the message that she was sending. And she sends a priority message. And so fast forward within 1 week, not even within 1 week, the next day, the doctor calls me at 7 a.m, a thoracic surgeon, Dr. Jabbar. And he says, I could see you tomorrow. And no, not tomorrow. Whatever it was, he could see me Monday because it was a weekend. I could see you Monday. Something happened that I couldn't see him on Monday, but I saw him like the next day, Tuesday. And so Shalia, thank you. This is my girl. So Shalia goes with me. You know, I'm emotional. The first person I call is my best friend Zena, and then Shalia went with me to the doctor. She was like, "Do you want somebody there with you? Yada yada. I'll come." And I didn't realize that I did. I kind of am the kind of person, I try to do things all on my own. I try not to ask for help, whatever. Sometimes you just got to ask for help. And I appreciate Shalia. Once she came, I really did appreciate her because she helped me think through this. So the doctor looks at my... Oh, wait, let's go backwards. So my primary care doctor, she gets a hold of Dr. Jabbar. In the meantime, I am so upset when I get the diagnosis that I start making phone calls on my own. So I went to my primary, but I also have, shout out, I probably shouldn't say her name, but I'm going to say her name. Shout out to Dr. Amy Goldberg in Philadelphia. She is my breast surgeon. Me and Dr. Goldberg have had a relationship since 2002. And so when I found out that I had a diagnosis of lung cancer, I reached out to her. Now, that's not what she does. Dr. Goldberg is Big Willie now. When I met Dr. Goldberg, she was, I'm not going to say she wasn't a small fish. She wasn't a small fish, but Dr. Goldberg over time has become Big Willie. And so again, I have a good relationship with Dr. Goldberg, and I will see her because of my breast cancer. I will see her for the rest of my life. And she said, me and her are going to grow old together and all this other stuff. But it's true. She'll be my breast surgeon, unless something happens to me or her. So anyway, called Dr. Goldberg. Dr. Goldberg moved mountains. Now, this is the third healthcare system. So I was diagnosed at one healthcare system in the state that I live in. I went to see my primary. That's the second healthcare system. And then Dr. Goldberg moved mountains. Dr. Goldberg called. I sent over all my information that the emergency room had given me, confirming I had lung cancer. Dr. Goldberg was on that like that. Dr. Goldberg picked up that phone, and I only noticed because the oncologist told me, he was like, I was booked. He said, I was booked solid. He said, but when you get a call from Dr. Goldberg, you don't tell her no. And he said, I put you on my schedule. And so, okay, so I have my primary working her magic at her health system, and I have Dr. Goldberg working her magic at her health system. And I'm not saying the names of the health systems, but just know that they are both of these health systems are the biggest health systems in Philadelphia. And only based upon my relationships that I have with my providers, that they know I'm not a hypochondriac. When you get a call from Crystal, you know it's something wrong, because Crystal's at home with scotch tape and glue trying to take care of herself. And when she can't, then she's reaching out to you. So they already know. When I call them, I already know something's wrong. Okay, so Dr. Goldberg is working her magic at her health system, and my doctor is working her magic mind at her health system. So fast forward to Tuesday, and I see Dr. Jabbar, and Shalia is with me, and he says oh, people are living with lung cancer for 5 years. There's lots of advances. And I'm like, 5 years? 5 years? That's nothing. Like 5 years. So and I'm going to try to keep this video short, but the story is long. So Dr. Jabbar says we have to do a biopsy. And I said, okay. So one of the other things besides the cough is my voice started to change. Like, people will say they didn't hear it, but I noticed that my voice was changing. It was becoming raspy. And I was having other issues. Besides the cough, I was losing weight. One week I lost 8 pounds in 1 week. Like, I was losing weight and not even trying to lose weight. And the funny thing is, I had just come back from a birthday trip in November from Mexico, and I saw my vacation pictures, and I was like, girl, you fat. And I had started to try to do something about it. So, at first when I lost a few pounds, I wasn't concerned, because I was thinking I had started to make lifestyle changes. But when I was dropping weight, I dropped 32 pounds in 6 weeks. 32 pounds in 6 weeks. Because it's, okay, so moving forward. So Dr. Jabbar says, we need a biopsy. And he looked at my CAT scans that the doctor at the other health system where Dr. Goldberg is ordered CAT scans. He ordered everything he could possibly order. First thing he ordered was an MRI to make sure that the lung cancer did not go to my brain, because lung cancer likes to go to the brain. So when you have cancer, there's certain cancers that like to go certain places. Lung cancer will go to your bone and it will go to your brain. So he wanted to make sure it didn't go to my brain. So he had ordered an MRI of my brain, and it came back, thank God. The lung cancer had not spread into my brain. And then he ordered CAT scans. And then he also had ordered something called a PET scan. So what a PET scan is they inject you with, let's just say, a sugar solution. Cancer loves sugar. Cancer loves sugar. Sugar will make cancer grow. So the PET scan, they inject you with the sugar substance, and if whatever lights up, they will treat it, or they look at it like it's a potential cancer. So my PET scan lit up, and I had lights all in my chest, and I had some in my throat, and I had some in my stomach. So I was like, oh my God, I got stomach cancer too. So he said we need a biopsy. So I said, okay. So here's the thing. Here's where knowing too much is scary. So I was like, okay. I said, how are you going to do the biopsy? So he was like, he was going to cut my neck. He was going to cut my neck right here. And he was going to take a piece of tissue out of my neck to biopsy one of the nodules that I have in my throat. So I said, well, how big is the scar going to be? And he said, do you like wearing scarves? I was like, no. All I could imagine was like Jack the Ripper slashing my throat. I was like, no. And Shalia, was there, and we were kind of like talking back and forth or whatever. And here's the thing that Shalia did for me. She gave me alternatives. Because she was there, she made me think in a different way that maybe I wouldn't have thought if she wasn't there. And Shalia is not a nurse, but she's smart. So here's where my expertise comes in. I know there's alternatives to get biopsies. I said, can we do a fine needle aspiration? So a fine needle aspiration is it's kind of where they basically suck out, or with a needle, get the cells and biopsy that way, as opposed to cutting my throat and taking a chunk, and that way with a scalpel or whatever. Okay, so at this point, we're probably around the 10th. We're around the 11th or 12th of, now keep in mind, I think, yeah, so we're only like, I don't even think we're 2 weeks into when I find out that I have this diagnosis or whatever. So anyway, what I do know is I saw him on a Tuesday. Can I tell you, on a Friday, this was Friday, he made a phone call again. So keep in mind, I told my doctor, she made a phone call to Dr. Jabbar. I called Dr. Goldberg. Dr. Goldberg made a phone call to the oncologist, Dr. Xavier. And I had everybody's hands were moving for Crystal. Everybody's hands. And fast forward, because this never would have happened. And I'm sad to say, I know it would not have happened if I was like a regular person and not, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not nobody. I'm Crystal. But, it pays. The relationships you develop with people are important. You never know. You never know. You never know. So anyway, I had a team fighting for me. So, and I'm already thinking, I'm dying, and I shared my diagnosis with a few people who had been there with me when I had my breast cancer, and and I fought that, and so many tears, and I didn't want to tell so many people, anyway, so get the biopsy done. This is the 17th, and the following week, I think I was going to be Christmas or Christmas Eve or whatever. I remember that. And And Dr. Jabbar called me. He called me. Matter of fact, it was Christmas Eve when he called me. He said, now things are running behind because of the COVID. Results are coming back slower than normal. Yada, yada, yada. So it might be a while before you find out your biopsy results. And let me just say, I think, and I'm rambling in this video, but I want to make sure I get all the details in. But Dr. Jabbar picked up the phone and he made a call to a friend of his who squeezed me on his schedule the same week to get that biopsy. So let me just say, from the time my doctor got a hold of Dr. Jabbar, it was less than a week that I was in his office. It was only a matter of a couple of days, and that was only because of the weekend, and only because now I remember that I couldn't see him because I was seeing, because Dr. Goldberg was on it, and I had already had an appointment with Temple. So between everybody, everything was, coming to play. So then I got my biopsy results. Dr. Jabbar calls me Christmas Eve-ish, and he says, I've got some, how did he put it? It wasn't like he's got good news. He said, I got better news. That's what he said. He said, I've got better news for you. I said, okay. He says, you don't have lung cancer. Thank God. Thank God I don't have lung cancer. He said, but you do have sarcoidosis. So I'm not going to go into what sarcoidosis is. It's the disease that killed Bernie Mac. So if you want to look that up, look that up. I have sarcoidosis, sarcoidosis. It mimics lung cancer. It shows up as lung cancer. It affects the lungs. It can affect any organ in the body, but it affects the lungs primarily. It builds up these granulomas, is what they're called, and that's they look like tumors, and they will fool every doctor. So I was in 3 different health systems that it fooled all 3 of them. The only way to find out that you don't have lung cancer, other than waiting to die, is by biopsy. And so that opened up a whole nother can of worms for me. But let me just say that I am on steroids for it, which is the treatment, long-term steroids. It will affect your breathing. Long-term, most people can recover. Some people, it becomes so bad that they die because their lungs can no longer expand. Maybe I'll make another video. If you want me to make a video about sarcoid and what my symptoms are and how they've affected me, and more to this video, I have to see a specialist. I do see a specialist now, a pulmonary specialist. If you want to hear more about sarcoidosis, leave me a message in the comments. I won't talk as long. So that is where we are. Life is what you make it, so make the most out of life. I appreciate all of you. This is Catching Up with Crystal. Like and subscribe to my channel.